You're listening to the radio during a mind control broadcast. The sky is a permanent shade of ash, the color of forgotten things. Not quite gray, not quite black, more like the underbelly of a dying fire, flickering just enough to remind you that something used to burn there. The sun hasn't truly broken through in years. It lurks behind a haze of particulate matter, smeared across the atmosphere like grease on old glass. Days and nights blurred together now, lit only by the dull red of emergency flares or the dim glow of malfunctioning solar lanterns. This place used to be called Illinois, or at least the ruins of what used to be part of it. Names don't carry much weight anymore. Chicago is a ghost. The skyline, gone. The lake, retreated so far, it might as well have never existed. It peeled away slowly like old wallpaper, curling at the edges, too tired to stay upright. First came the fires. California, Australia, Siberia, names you used to hear in news stories about record-breaking wildfires. They just never stopped breaking records. Then came the floods. By the time the wind turned toxic and the rains turned to acid, people had already started digging into the ground or floating on makeshift rafts of desperation, where I am now somewhere outside the dead. Nothing moves unless the wind kicks up enough heat to force a tumbleweed to roll. At least the sign was still hanging sideways. Everything inside was stripped, clean, no food, no wires, not even flooring. They'd ripped the copper out of the walls. Just a shell now. Government. That crumbled before the last midterms ever happened. Not with a bang, but with silence. No broadcasts, no rescue, just ... absence. They say the last official transmission out of D.C. was 2 years ago. A looping message, please shelter in place and await further instruction. But the only instructions now come from rogue frequencies, pirate stations, survivor networks, or worse, the broadcast. No one knows who started it. No station name, no location, just a signal that cuts through everything. AM, FM, emergency bands, doesn't matter. It speaks in calm voices, familiar voices. Sometimes it's your mother, sometimes your lover. People don't come back from the broadcast. Not really. They walk into the dust, faces slack, blank eyes, smiling. We call them the taken. What's left of civilization hangs together in threads. Some pockets of survivors hoard old tech, solar rigs, and 3D printed tools, anything they can keep running. They form communes, barter with dried beans and bootleg antibiotics. But most folks travel in packs now, small groups, easier to hide, less likely to turn on each other. There are factions to ones that hunt, not for food, for control. They carry radio repeaters and home-built antenna arrays. Try to amplify the broadcast. Claim it brings peace, clarity, unity. They say resistance is cruel. That choice is the enemy, but me. I keep moving, stay off major roads, use wind-up gear, patch what I can. My radio's short-range, analog, and half-melted butt. It works. I use it to send out warnings, weather reports. All that's left are signals, static, and survival. And somewhere in all that white noise, something's still listening. They used to call me Helen Ward, Dr. Helen Ward, technically communications engineer, signal security specialist, former adjunct professor at Northwestern. You're not. Maybe the static is all that reaches you, or maybe it's already too late, and the broadcast has taken hold. Either way, I keep talking, because silence is a kind of surrender, and I'm not ready to lay down my voice just yet. Before it all fell apart, I worked in spectral analysis, frequencies, interference, encryption. I used to write papers on the... It felt important once, necessary. Now it's survival. I live in what used to be a broadcast relay stations, mall reinforced, half submerged in the edge of a hill. Just enough structure left to keep the wind out. Solar panels on the roof, scavenged from a roving tech caravan that didn't survive the last flash flood season. They left their boots in the mud. That's how I found them. No sign of a struggle. Just clothes, gear, and the eerie, brittle silence of people who'd walked willingly into the mist. The broadcast had hit that region hard. The taken had smiles carved into their faces by the sun and their own detachment from reality. I don't think they even knew they were dying. They thought they were waking up. I stay underground mostly. The air quality topside will shred your lungs if you breathe it too long, especially during ion surges. The broadcast rides those surges piggybacks on atmospheric instability, like a parasite on a sick host. I check it every day. Paranoia's a virtue now. I eat what I can, grow mushrooms, mostly. I've got a rain collector, heavily filtered, but some days I still taste copper and rust. You never know what fell from the sky last, and every morning I spin up the crank generator, power on the signal scanner, and start transmitting. This is Ward, band 308, A static-free relay active. If you're hearing this, you're still you. That line matters. It reminds me I still AM2, what keeps me going. Part of it is duty. Not to any government or organization. They're all long dead but to the people who didn't make it. He was a firefighter, saved 12 people in the flood of 33. The 13th walked straight into the current ties blank, smiling. Mark tried to stop them, lost his footing, and the river took him too. We didn't find his body. Not that year, not ever. Jules was different. They were brilliant, stubborn, full of light and plans and stupid, beautiful hope. They thought we could fix it, reverse the signal, shield our communities, cut off the source. And maybe they were right, but they underestimated how quickly minds bend when they want peace more than truth. They got caught broadcasting a counter-signal in Denver, taken live. During a riot, I heard the whole thing. The last thing Jules ever said, in their own voice, was, "Don't believe what sounds kind. It's not always good." I carved those words into the wall by the transmitter. Sometimes I stare at them in the dark. I don't think I'm immune. To the broadcast, I've just learned how to duck, stay low, filter the noise, think in analog. I keep my thoughts tangled. That helps. Jules's journals, even cookbooks, anything that reminds my brain of what it means to think for itself. And I talk into the microphone. A child crying, then a laugh, a coordinates ping. One time, just once. Someone played a Song An old soul track from the 60s and for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. The world felt like it might be worth salvaging. That's what I live for, not survival. Exactly, not anymore. Survival is just breathing and foraging and keeping your bones from breaking in the cold. I live for the response, for the whisper that someone else is out there resisting. I haven't seen another living human in, I don't know, a year, maybe more. but I've heard them in the bursts between storms, in the hours after a major transmission pulse, when the broadcast resets and the air gets quiet enough to carry a weak voice across a dying landscape. That's when I talk louder. That's when I tell them what I know. You're not crazy. You're not alone. The voices in your head aren't yours, but they can be ignored. You can still choose silence. You can still choose yourself. This is Helen Ward, still breathing, still listening, still fighting. Subtle at first, like a fever settling into the bones of the earth. I remember the summers getting longer, more AC, fewer outdoor events. People still clung to the illusion that technology would save us. That was before the jet stream collapsed. Now the air burns every morning before I check the solar rig or scan the perimeter for movement. I step outside and take a breath. The wind is low. It's a ritual, a reminder. The sky is never silent. There's always a hum now, faint and unnatural, as though the atmosphere itself is vibrating from stress fractures we can't see. I used to track radio waves. Now I track heat domes. Right now, the Midwest sits beneath one of the most persistent heat anomalies ever recorded. Not that records mean much anymore. Thermometers maxed out months ago. Weather systems have stalled entire regions, locked under unrelenting solar pressure. The soil has cracked wide open, deep fissures running through farmland, like veins carved by a giant's claw. When the water table dropped for the third consecutive year, wells ran dry, aquifers shriveled, and with the rivers gone, there was no way to refill. Crops died, livestock perished. A global pattern of trapped solar radiation cycling over land masses like a slow, deliberate wave. With the polar vortexes dissolved and the atmosphere thinned, there's nothing left to break it. The last climate model. I saw back when the satellites were still talking projected that these conditions would last at least 15 years. 15 years of unyielding drought, hyperthermal events, and ultraviolet saturation. We're just in year 5. The old cities didn't stand a chance. Concrete absorbed the heat during the day and radiated it at night. Streets melted. Power grids buckled. The hospitals became ovens. People tried to flee, but the highways were clogged. Engines overheated. Tempers flared. Then came the looting, the blackouts, the final transmissions from FEMA that were mostly screams and static. I still remember the last emergency alert I received on a standard channel. Shelter underground. Avoid open-air exposure. Do not trust unfamiliar voices. Then silence. But it wasn't just the heat that might have been survivable, if barely. What made it worse was the broadcast. It's not weather. It's not natural. And it's not human not anymore. The signal piggybacks on thermal surges. It pulses through ionized air during the hottest part of the day, and again during thermal inversions at night. It started small, just whispers on the edge of known frequencies, but then it began to harmonize. Just stop resisting. That's when you walk, and walk, and walk, and you don't stop. I've encountered survivors out there, at least I thought they were survivors, until I saw the glazed eyes, the glassy calm, the vacant smiles. The taken don't speak unless the broadcast wants them to, dragging the static through the world like an infection. Others just hum, a single sustained note, vibrating deep in the chest. I once watched a man light himself on fire while humming. No pain, just peace. he whispered. It's better this way. As the flames took him, survival's harder now than it was even a year ago. Not because of the lack of resources that's bad, sure, but predictable. You can plan around hunger. You can engineer water catchers. You can even salvage batteries if you're careful with the wiring. But the signal, you never know where it's coming from next. It bounces, repeats, loops through long dead towers. It can hijack any speaker system, any PA, even shortwave bands. Sometimes I wonder if it's learning. I've lost 3 radios this month alone. 2 overheated, 1 melted. From inside, the circuits twisted like wax. I've had to rotate frequencies constantly and ground everything manually. Even then, the whisper sometimes finds its way in. I wrap my head at night in copper mesh, sleep in 5-minute shifts. The dreams are getting worse. Yesterday, I picked up a call week, barely there. Someone identifying themselves as resonance. 9. Broadcasting from the eastern wastes. They spoke in numbers, patterns, code, but I understood enough to catch the warning. Signal entering vascular space. Protect your blood-brain barrier. If it gets in your dreams, it's already in your spine. I don't know who they were. Maybe they're dead now. Maybe they were never real. Still, I haven't slept more than an hour since the heat makes it. Worse, when the air shimmers, the signal gets louder. Your thoughts start to feel like echoes. Your memories blur. I carry a notebook everywhere now, write everything down, even things I shouldn't forget. My name, the date, the color of the sky, the taste of water. I've rationed my supplies to the ounce. 2 liters of clean water a day no more. Solar capacity is at 43%. Enough to power the transmitter and scanner with a margin so thin it's practically imaginary. I have no fuel, no transport. The bike frame rusted through last season. The last survivor I met in person, an old man named Milo, traveling west, with a wagon died in his sleep under my tarp. His body just shut down. His last words were, "Keep talking, they need to know." And now it hums on my shelf, picking up fragments from across the dead grid. There's a pattern I've started to hear, a sound underneath the static, a rhythm, not quite Morse, not music. It feels like breathing, and every time I hear it, I get this tightness in my chest, like something's watching, listening back. I don't know how much longer I can hold out here. The ground is shifting. The last map I had showed a fault line forming just south of here, a heat fracture zone. If it ruptures, this whole region might sink. But there's no place safer to go. North is scorched. West is locked behind militia zones, and broadcast towers dot only. The dead go south. So I stay. I transmit. I survive. Not because I think I'll live through this, but because someone else might. And if they hear my voice, my real voice, maybe they'll remember how to keep theirs, because the broadcast is getting bolder. And if we stop listening to each other, all that's left is it. The heat hasn't let up in 12 days. Not once. Not at night. Not at dawn. It's a wet, suffocating heat now. The kind that presses into your chest like a hand. My water stores are down to a single 5-liter tank, half of which is already reserved for the cooling coils in the transmitter. I ration what I drink by the spoonful. Every drop is filtered through 3 layers of activated charcoal and scavenged. Ceramic still tastes like rust and sun-scorched plastic. The solar rig is sputtering again. I don't know if the panels are warped from overuse or if the signal is interfering with the converters. Either way, I've only got enough current to broadcast for 20 minutes, a day 10 in the morning, 10 at night. It's not enough, but it's all I've got, and still I keep talking. This is Helen Ward, 308A, dust signal relay active. If you're hearing this, resist the frequency. The broadcast is not your friend. You are not alone. Repeat, you are not alone. But lately, I'm starting to wonder if I am. 3 nights ago, I saw movement on the ridge, flickers, someone or something standing against the skyline, too far to make out detail, but they were watching. They didn't approach, just stood there. Still, 4 hours, I didn't sleep. I kept my pistol in hand, and the emergency siren coiled under my foot. If it was scavengers, they'd come during the dark, when heat stuns the mind. If it was the taken, ... they don't knock. That same night, I picked up a strange burst on the shortwave encrypted, stuttering. It lasted less than 10 seconds, but the signal strength was stronger than anything I've heard in weeks. It repeated. One word, refugia. I've heard that name before. Years ago, maybe more. It was a theory, a whisper, a possibility, not a place, exactly an idea, a project some of the old climatology think tanks were working on. Hidden ecological domes, buried underground or deep in the Rockies, supposedly sealed off, self-sustaining, immune to the broadcast. A rumor, a myth. But I recorded the frequency, ran it through my old analysis software. It's real. And from the pattern drift it came from, less than 200 kilometers northeast inside the red zone. That's wildfire territory. Ashfall plains, no-go zones. No one goes into the red dot unless they're desperate or chasing a miracle. The internal battle is worse than the physical one. Part of me wants to go, pack up what's left, follow the signal, walk into the dust, and see if the myth has legs. But I've spent years building this station, this sanctuary. It's not just wires and shielding, it's memory. It's Jules's handwriting on the ceiling tiles. It's Mark's firefighter tag hanging from the crank wheel. If I leave, and it's nothing, I won't survive the return. But if I stay, the transmitter's dying. The broadcast is getting stronger. And last night, I heard my own voice in the static. Not live. Not a recording. Something mimicking me. This is Helen Ward, Dust Signal Relay, active. You are not alone. You're with me now. You're safe. Just let go. It repeated, over and over, just slightly off. My inflection was wrong. My cadence just a little too clean, like it had stripped the emotion out, turned it synthetic. They're learning how to speak like us. I smashed the old receiver that picked it up, buried the pieces in the ash dot this morning. A stranger showed up at the edge of the compound. I spotted them through the broken scope lens mounted to the tower, dust-covered, lean, carrying nothing but a metal canister strapped to their back and a cracked face shield. I waited. They approached slowly, hands up, no weapons visible. But that doesn't mean much anymore. The taken don't need weapons. They stopped at the perimeter and knelt. Then, without a word, they opened the canister. Inside was a data drive wrapped in foil, sealed airtight. I didn't approach until dusk. Watched them leave no erratic behavior, no humming, just silence. The drives encrypted, military grade, but I recognized the signature code 1 of the authentication. Strings Jules used in their old research logs. The last thing they worked on before Denver, before they were taken. I cracked the first file just before midnight. It's raw data, messy and half corrupted, but there's a heat map overlaid with biosyn readings, pockets of signal silence, dead zones for the broadcast. And in the centrifuge, not a rumor, a signal-shielded zone, possibly habitable, confirmed water, potential survivors. It's real, but there's a catch. To reach it, I'd have to cross the ash belt, 60 kilometers of dead land and shifting heat storms, no natural cover, no water, and worst of all resonance fields, places where the broadcast echoes off the land itself. You can't trust your ears out there, can't trust your mind. People call it the mirage line, because even your own memories betray you once you step into it. I've got 2 liters of water, 1 half-functioning pistol. My old environmental suit is patched and barely seals. But something in me is stirring, a kind of panic, not fear, urgency, like I'm on a clock that just started ticking. Maybe it's because the mimicry is getting better. Or maybe it's because I know now that refugia isn't a fantasy. It's a chance. And we don't get many of those anymore. The question is, do I hold this ground, this radio station, this sanctuary of my memories? Or do I walk into the red and chase a rumor that could either save what's left of a sore finish? The job the broadcast started. Jules used to say, hope is the riskiest signal, but it's the only one that travels. Maybe it's time I listened. Tomorrow I decide. Tonight I transmit. This is Helen Ward, 308A. Relay still active. I received your message. I believe you. I'm coming. If anyone's out there, keep the channel open. And whatever you do, don't follow the voice. That sounds like me. The storm came out of nowhere. One moment, the horizon was smeared with the usual Hazenberg gray, low and humming like a dying engine. Then a line split the sky open, sharp and unnatural, like a scar torn into the atmosphere itself. I watched it from the tower's remains, just a skeleton of iron now, but still the highest point around. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in less than a minute. That's not supposed to happen anymore. At first, I thought it was a mirage. The ash storms don't usually start with cold, but then the static hit. My transmitter lit up without warning. No hand on the dial, no signal scan, just full-on distortion. No words, just noise. It roared across the panel in jagged waves, scrambling every frequency at once. The generator hiccuped. The lights flickered, and then I heard it my name. Not like before, not a recording, not a mimic. This was live. Helen Ward, step outside. It was in my voice, but wrong. The rhythm wasn't mine. The breath patterns didn't match. But hearing it broadcasted back at me through my own rigget broke something for the first time in years. I felt afraid. Not the usual fear, not survival fear, existential fear, the kind that eats through bone. Because if the broadcast could reach me here inside the most shielded station I've ever built, it meant the perimeter had failed. It was here. I had 5 minutes to act, grabbed the drive. The maps, my pack, sealed the suit. By the time I made it to the tunnel exit, the air was thick with vibration, like the world was humming just out of phase. The static wasn't just on the radio anymore, it was in my skull, in my blood. Outside, the storm had taken shape. It wasn't just wind or heat. This was something different, like a dust cyclone laced with lightning, but silent. No thunder, no rain, just that crushing hum. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The moment of decision leave the station or die with it. I looked back once, just once. The tower, the panels, the copper mesh lining the entryway, all of it, trembling under the pressure of something unseen. I whispered goodbye to Jules, touched the broken photo I kept of Mark. Then I ran. The mirage line began 4 kilometers out. The air shimmered like a false mirror, and beyond it, reality started to fray. Shapes warped, the terrain looped, compass needles spun like drunk dancers. I anchored myself with the rhythm of my breath and the pulse in my fingers. Left foot, right foot, forward, always forward. I used the drive's signal tracker to navigate refuges. Ping was weak, intermittent, but it was real. As long as I stayed moving toward that pulse, I had a path. Then I saw them, a group of taken, 5, maybe 6, standing perfectly still in the basin of an old highway cloverleaf. The asphalt around them melted smooth, like obsidian glass. They were holding radios, old, square, analog boxes, all tuned to different frequencies. Their heads moved in unison, slow, mechanical, like sunflowers tracking an invisible sun. I froze. One of them turned. She looked like a girl I used to teach. Same hair, same eyes. Her mouth opened slowly, and instead of words, she'll be ROADCASTED ... not speech. A tone, low and impossibly deep. It hit me like a migraine made of pressure and grief. Every failure, every death, every wrong turn surged into my mind like poison. I dropped to my knees, clutching the earth, trying to scream, but finding no air. But then something cut through. The old drive, still clipped to my belt. It buzzed, fought back, emitted its own wave. A counter signal. The taken recoiled like they'd been burned. One by one, they turned and walked away, disappearing into the shimmer like ghosts through fog. I couldn't move for a long time. Just lay there, sobbing, shaking, trying to remember who I was. The broadcast almost took me. I know it. Another minute, another second maybe, and I'd be humming like the rest. Eventually, I crawled forward. Then I stood. Refugia was still ahead. I reached it at sunrise, or what passes for sunrise, now a vague pink glow leaking through the soot. It wasn't what I expected. Not a dome, not a city, just a series of dark metal structures embedded in the canyon wall. Low profile, shielded, no signage, no welcome, just silence. But the moment I stepped through the entrance arch, the static in my skull stopped. It was like being underwater after years in a wind tunnel. I collapsed. When I woke up, I was inside. Clean air, real water, people, not many, maybe 20, scientists, engineers, a few former military. They looked tired, weathered, but their eyes were clear. They didn't smile when they saw me, but they nodded. One of them, a tall man with burn scars on both arms, simply said, "You made it. That's enough." They call this place Refugia, and they're fighting back. They've got shielding tech I've never seen. They've been recording the broadcast, analyzing it, mapping its evolution. They believe it's not just a signal, it's an organism, a kind of sentient frequency, alive, feeding. But they think they've found a weakness. The key is in the counter-harmonics. The same signal the drive emitted back on the highway. It was Jules's work, their final project. They called it Project Echo-Fade. And now they need me, because I still remember how to broadcast, and I still have a voice. The broadcast tried to steal and failed. I made my choice. I survived the storm. I passed the line. I found the place. Now it's time to fight the broadcast. Wanted silence, but I'm still speaking, and it's going to hear me. It's been 40 days since I stepped into refugia. 40 days since the dust cleared behind me and the static left my ears. Since I stopped hearing my name whispered in broken frequencies and started hearing real voices, again hesitant, strained, but human. Refugia is not a paradise. It's not safe. Not really. Safety doesn't exist anymore. But it's a place where people can still think for themselves. A place the broadcast hasn't penetrated yet. They keep everything analog here. Nothing with a processor. Nothing wireless. Everything is grounded, shielded. The entire base is wrapped in a woven mesh of conductive alloys, some of them rare earth, some pulled from salvaged satellites. The signal can't get in. Not here. The air's thin but breathable. The water's filtered through natural aquifers beneath the canyon, deep enough to have survived the heatwave cycles. There are hydroponics chambers and algae pools and rooms full of ticking machines, keeping the fragile balance alive. It's a miracle stitched together with solder and sweat. I still sleep light, still wake at phantom sounds, but the difference now is that I'm not alone. They gave me a room, a journal, a transmitter, and a purpose. I've been helping to calibrate their signal reflection tech project, EchoFade. It's complex, delicate, and barely stable, but it works. It doesn't just block the broadcast. It unweaves it. We don't fully understand how, but the algorithm Jules created maybe, instinctively, maybe desperately, wasn't just a filter. It was a mirror. When deployed in the right frequency band, it feeds the broadcast back into itself, distorting its pattern, disrupting its coherence. The theory is this: the broadcast is alive, not in a traditional sense, but in its behavior. It learns, adapts, grows. But like any organism, it has weaknesses, and its biggest flaw may be that it echoes too cleanly. Send a strong enough ripple one that matches its structure, but with embedded chaos, and you can confuse it, slow it down, maybe even kill it. We've been testing small bursts in the surrounding zones. No wide-scale deployment, yet it's too risky, and we don't know how it will retaliate. But in the last 2 weeks, we've seen a change. The Taken don't linger near the perimeter anymore. They pass by, but they don't approach. Their postures changed, hesitating, and that hesitation gives me hope. Hope, a word I almost forgot the shape of. It's a strange thing, realizing you've survived something that was supposed to erase you. Not just your body, but your voice, your identity, yourself sometimes. I sit in the cum room with the old microphone and just speak, not broadcasting to the outside. Yet we're not ready for that, but just talking, telling stories, remembering, naming the people I lost. Mark, Jules, Milo, the girl with the cracked face shield, the old caravan that disappeared into the mist. I speak their names because memory is resistance, and maybe that's what I know that the static lives in me now, in a way. Not the signal itself, but the scars it left, the quiet paranoia, the deep echoing loneliness, the knowledge that I came so close to forgetting who I was. But I also remember who brought me back, the stranger who left the drive at my gate, the voice that whispered numbers across dead frequencies. Made it. They carried the flame forward long enough for me to reach it. And now it's my turn. The world outside is still burning. The skies are still choked with ash. The old systems of power and governance are gongest, rusted flags fluttering over bones, dot, and nature. It's uncertain. Some regions are stabilizing. There are rumors of rain falling again near the northern basin. Birds spotted nesting in the black, hollow valley. A new rift opened up near New Mexico, swallowed an entire valley overnight. The earth isn't healing, not yet, but it's trying, and maybe that's all we can ask. Sometimes I still miss the silence of my old station, the ritual of turning the dial, the hum of the generator, the voice I kept alive through sheer will. But now I understand something deeper. That voice wasn't meant to echo forever in the dark. It was meant to connect, to reach, to remind someone, anyone, that they were still real. And here in Refugia, I'm learning how to reach again. We're preparing for the next step. A broadcast of our own, not a signal of fear, not a trap, a beacon to say, you're not alone. There's still a place for you. The broadcast didn't win. We don't know how far the message will go. We don't know how many will hear it, but it doesn't matter because we're still here and we're still human. They tell me we'll start broadcasting again tomorrow. It won't be like before. No looping warnings, no desperate calls into the void. This will be different, deliberate, a message carved into silence, one that dares to carry more than just fear. We've encoded the signal into analog, no data, trails, no digital signatures, nothing for the broadcast to mimic or trace, just a narrow beam, a whispered frequency, pushed out across the ruined world with nothing but hope to carry it. And I'll be the one speaking. I've rewritten the script a dozen times, torn it up, started over. What do you even say to the scattered, half-broken people still out there? To the ones hiding in cracked subway stations, desert outposts, caves blackened with soot and grief? What do you say to those who can't trust their own thoughts anymore? You speak the truth. You speak it plain. You tell them what they already know, but haven't heard in so long that it feels like fiction, that they are not alone. I know it sounds simple, trite, maybe, but that sentence, those 4 words, have kept me alive more times than I can count. Now I do. I've seen. Refugia. I've walked inside it. I've eaten food grown in recycled water and breathed air filtered through 20-year-old carbon scrubbers on me. I've seen proof, and that changes everything. But here's the part I can't sugarcoat. It's not over, and we're not even close to stopping it. Not yet, but for the first time in a long time, we've interrupted it. And sometimes that's enough. A break in the signal, a heartbeat in the quiet, a single voice saying, no, not today. The others here, they've started calling me Anchor. I didn't ask for the name. I'm not sure I even deserve it. Someone has to speak first, even if the words are soft, even if they don't echo, even if no one answers for days or weeks or ever, we still speak. Because silence is how the broadcast wins. So tomorrow, when I step up to that mic, here's what I'll say. If you're out there unaware if this finds you, know this. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're not alone. This is Helen Ward, broadcasting from Refugia. There's still a place for you. And whatever voice tells you to give up, ignore it. That's not you. That's not real. Stay human. Stay awake. We're still here, and we're not done yet. Maybe someone will hear it. Maybe someone will pick up a rusty old radio and tune into that faint hum and realize this isn't the end. Not yet. I know survival isn't a storybook ending. There's no final chapter, no roll of credits, just another sunrise, another decision, another mile of cracked earth. But now I know why I keep moving, not just to live. Still hum because they don't know how to stop. For the girl who dropped the drive at my gate and vanished into ash. For the strangers I'll never meet, who might one day hear this voice and feel something stir in them again. That's why we keep going. Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because as long as we're breathing, the broadcast hasn't won, not completely. And maybe maybe this tiny flame we carry will be enough to light someone else's path. One stubborn echo in a world that tried to go silent. Hope is fragile, but it travels, asked ChatGPT.